4 labourers hours, you can only produce 1 of good 2, but with 4 labourers hours, you could produce 2 of good 1.
Correct.
So they would have the comparative advantage would be.
Forget about comparative advantage now.
It's to do with like the opportunity cost between each of them.
So for each of these countries here, I could add an extra row. I could add an extra row that's called opportunity cost. Every time I say opportunity cost, I have to be careful, because opportunity cost could be opportunity cost of good 1 or opportunity cost of good 2. Both of them should work. It's a matter of which one do you choose, okay? I'm going to choose opportunity cost of the good that I put on the x-axis. Okay? So I'm going to say opportunity cost of 1, effectively what I was saying, in terms of 2. In terms of 2. In other words, what this is telling me is when I want to produce an extra unit of good 1, how many units of good 2 am I giving up? In this graph, where do you see that opportunity cost? In this graph for country A.
Gradient.
Excellent, Sam. Do you want to explain that?
Okay, so if you think of a change in the amount you produce of a good, say it's easy with a good 2 for a gradient, but and the corresponding change in the amount of good 1 you could produce, then the ratio of those is the gradient of the.
Think about it. I think you got just a little bit confused with. You're thinking in terms of good 2. If you think about an opportunity cost of good 1, right, is the amount of good 2 you have to give up for 1 unit of good 1. So if this is 1, then the slope would simply be the rise, right? But what's the rise? Is the change in good 2. So that's why the slope will tell us the amount of good 2 that you need to give up for an extra unit of good 1 produced. Okay, so what's the slope into here? It's a half. Does this make sense? Of course it makes sense, right?
It's minus a half, isn't it?
It's minus a half, yeah, sure. Absolutely, the slope is negative there. But when I think of opportunity cost, I like to think of them in terms of positives, okay? But of course, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking that I'm gaining 1 and I'm giving up the other. So there's a sort of like a negative type relationship there. Okay, what's the opportunity cost of country B? 2.
Oh, no, 2, yeah.
2,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
What do? I just check the slope, the gradient here. Okay. Which country has a comparative advantage in what?
In what?
Country A has a comparative advantage in good 1, because it has a lower opportunity cost. See if you can do the same exercise now, but make an extra row that says opportunity cost of 2 in terms of good 1. What would that have been? So I started the video a little bit late on this one, but we haven't really covered much. So for those of you kind of watching from home, in part A we just said write a definition, write the actual answer, and then maybe follow it up with 1 or 2 sentences that describe why the PPF, or the production possibility frontier, is linear. So in this case it's linear because the unit labor requirements stay constant. So what do you have?
So the opportunity cost of 2 in terms of good 1 for A is 2, and for country B is a half.
Of course, and they would have to be flipped that way. Okay. So what does this say? It says that country A has an opportunity as a comparative advantage in good 1. By the same token, country B has a advantage on good 2. Excellent. Okay. So this bit here sets us at a good pace to kind of, we've done this. Now it says, suppose that each country now specializes completely in which the goods that they have a comparative advantage. You couldn't have done this without knowing what the comparative advantage was, okay? So this part C is kind of linked to part B. And that with trade, A consumes 3/5 of the two countries' combined output of each two goods. Draw the joint production possibility set and show the point where the aggregate joint production will be. How did you do that?
You
Mm-hmm.
create a new axis,
Yeah.
and then you combine the total amount of each good they could produce in
Uh-huh.
each one if they're entirely specialised. So if they're entirely specialised in good one,
Excellent.
you would add that, which I think is whatever 400, I think.
Mhm.
And then you do the total if they specialised in good B, which is 400. Sorry, good 2, which is 425.
Yeah.
And then you take the point if they both specialised in the one they had comparative advantage on, and then you draw a point of that in the graph, and then you connect the axes to that point, so you have like a kink in the curve.
425. Right? If you think about this, what you're going to do is graphically, you're pretty much going to take these bits. You're going to take these bits here and say, who should produce first? Right? So let's say that I'm kind of starting from this point here. At this point here, this economy is only producing good one. So it's very easy to find this point here and to find this point here. Okay. Then the remaining bit is about drawing the other two, right? The other two. How are you going to draw them? There's two ways of drawing them. You can draw them kind of this way, or you can draw them this way. They will both reach to those points, right? Imagine that these two things are parallel and similar. These two things are parallel and similar. Okay? Which one is the right way?
The large one.
The large one. Why, Sam?
Because the smaller one has unused resources.
Yeah, okay, that's the intuition. Okay, that you could kind of like immediately build on that, right? That the small one is, yeah, it would be silly to be that one, okay? But let's try to explain that using this idea of comparative advantages, okay?
So is the top one the one where they're both producing what they have a comparative advantage in, and the bottom one the one that they don't?
No, not really. This is where all the resources are being devoted to good one.
Yeah.
As this point here and this point here has nothing to do with comparative advantage.
Yeah,
It only has to do with overall economy constraints. Was that the question, or were you hinting something else?
Yeah, so I was talking about the middle point.
Ah, right.
The
Yes.
upper
Yes.
one is where they're both producing what they have a comparative advantage in.
Yeah.
And it's the lower one that they're both producing what they don't have a comparative advantage in.
Oh, right, exactly. Yes. I see. Yes, I misunderstood you. You're really talking about this point here and this point here, and I misunderstood you. I thought you were talking about this point here and this point here. Yes. Yes, Sam, you're absolutely right there. That these 2 points, A, B, here everyone is producing where they have a comparative advantage on. Here they're producing where they have a comparative disadvantage on, right? So if this economy is here, right? If this economy is here and they're producing 400 units, now you want to start producing good 2. Who should produce good 2? Country B. Country B is this steeper one, right? So it should be country B that should come out here first, because country B has a comparative advantage in producing good 2. So we'll give up less units of good 1 for the production of those units up there. Okay, excellent. If they fully specialize, where will be the production level? Here, of course, right? If they're fully specializing, it's right here. Okay. Excellent. So now, see if you can draw the joint production and show the point where the aggregate production will be. The aggregate joint production will be. Exactly. So that's going to be the aggregate joint production. How could you show how much country 1 is taking and how much country 2 is taking? what would be the actual points here? How many units of good 1 and how many units of good 2 would I produce?
300 a good 1. 300 a good 2, yeah.
And then 250 of 1.
250. 250 and then 300. How can we check this? Well, let's check what's this difference between these two.
150.
150. Is this 150? Yes, it is, right? So we're on the right track there, right? What's the difference between these two?
100.
100. Is it 100? Or
125.
Oh, sorry, I read that wrong.
125. This is also 125. So we're on the right track, right? So we know that these numbers are correct, okay? Now, what about, let's look for each country. Quantity of 1 for A, quantity of 2 for A, quantity of 1 for B, quantity of 2 for B. How much will they consume? What we've been told is A consumes 3/5 of the combined output. 3/5. One was 250. 250. 300. 300. Then we have Q1A is equal to 75. Q2A is equal to 180. Q1B is equal to 50.
So why is there only 75 and 50?
120. Say it again. Maybe I make a mistake.
Well, isn't it 1/5 of 250 50 rather than 25? So they should both be double.
Yeah.
Say that again. I might have.
For the quantity for good 1,
For quantity for good 1, yeah.
You've crossed out the 5 and the 250 root 25. Shouldn't it be 50?
Oh yeah, of course. 5. Yeah, of course.
So you just double.
Double it, yeah. 50, 50,
150.
and 100. Thanks. 150 and what was this?
100.
100. Okay. Excellent. Okay, so those are the quantities that we reached. Draw the joint. Right. So, how much of each good will each country produce, export, and consume? That should also be a relatively straightforward question.
Sorry,
Okay.
question.
Yeah.
The joint point of production, is
Uh-huh.
that just B, or is it the list of things on the side? Sorry, is the second part of that question, is it that point there, or do you need to write all of that for that one question as well?
For that part, this was enough, right?
Okay. This is for the next.
Because that's what they're asking, right? This bit is really for the next one. I'm kind of like setting up the work for the next one. But you're right. I didn't need to do that part there. Okay. So we know that each country is fully specializing in whatever their comparative advantage is, right? So country A's comparative advantage is in good 1. How many units of good 1 are they producing? 250. This is the production. What about country B? What are they producing? 300. This is their production. What about their consumption? Or what is their export? Is their production minus their consumption that they have. Okay? So these bits here are the consumption. exports are simply equal to production minus consumption. Okay, now here's a question that is the final question on this one. Is there evidence that these countries have gained from trade? How would you answer that? And let's try to be as precise as we can.
You'd look at their consumption as well as their consumption as well as their exports from before they traded, before they specialised, and then you would compare it to afterwards.
Yeah, the only thing that we need to do is we need to compare the consumption only, okay? Compare the consumption that they're having. What I would do, I would place this consumption in the autarkic case, okay? So what I would say into here is that for country A, we have 150, 180, right? Right, so they're doing 150, right? Somewhere like here. This country, sorry, country 1 is doing 150 of good. Country A, 150 and 180, right? So they're at some point up here, okay? Well, up here. Let's say 180. Are they better off?
Yeah.
How do you know?
Because they're consuming more of good too than they would be able to produce.
How do you know that they're going to derive more benefits from that good too?
It depends on the relative values of the goods.
They're consuming the same amount of good 1 with more good 2 compared to before.
Okay.
If they were producing that amount of good 1 themselves, they would be producing significantly less
Right.
of good 2.
So what did the question say in terms of what do they do in case of autarky? In case of autarky, this country A would have 150 and 50. Now they're having 150 and 180. Are they better off? Yes, if we have non-satiation on good 2. Okay, so more of that good 2 is actually better. Because of course, you could have envisioned a situation very easily where the preferences of this country are like this, are kinked. So this is where they would have been under autarky, right? This is where they are under trade, but their utility has not changed.
So how did you... I don't understand the green bits.
So basically, the thing to realize there is this. What we have is effectively we are comparing. So without trade, we're at some point here. Think of this as without trade for country A. Okay, so this is good 1. This is good 2 for country A. With trade, I'm here. With trade. You're being asked to say, are you happier here in the green dot? Are you happier in the purple dot? Your intuition says you're happier in the purple dot. Implicitly, what you're assuming when you say that is you're assuming that more is better. And I'm providing a counterexample by giving you some preferences which are perfect complement. So if we have perfect complement type preferences, that they look like this, kink like this, these are indifference
curve. You can
curve.
only get more utility if you've got more of both.
Correct.
Rather than just more of 1.
Correct.
And given that the point doesn't lie on their preference curve, it's not necessarily better for them.
Correct. Correct. So a first class student would have noticed that, right? So rather than just saying, of course, both countries are better off because they're getting more on both. That should have been followed up by, they cannot be made worse off, right? Because of course I could just, if this good 2 could be discarded costlessly, I could always go back to my autarky place. So I couldn't have been made worse off by this. But it doesn't mean that I've been made strictly better off.
Is it an assumption that you can discard
Yeah,
costlessly?
yeah, you can, of course. You could say, but that one sentence or 2 sentences that you'd have written there would have shown the examiner that you've understood a step ahead from just more is better, right? That you understand the subtleties of that answer. Okay? And you always want to do that when you're sure that that is a subtlety on your answer, okay? Let me give you a bit of time to just look at your answers and see if you have any particular question onto that, okay? So this is sort of like, you can check the answers here as well very quickly.
Are these your answers?
These are sort of like the
The model.
more official. They're really not model answers, because if you were to write this on an exam, you wouldn't get a first, right? You will get a very high 2-1, but you wouldn't get a first, right? So don't think of them as model answer, right? This, together with the commentary that we're doing, should be more close to like a first kind of model type answer, okay? So exactly as we did, see, like there's some benefits to writing both things on the same graph, okay? Because you can kind of see where things are going. But then really, that's what we have, which are all things that we kind of talked about. And you can see that, you know, compared to autarky in A, consumers weekly more of both goods, as does B under trade. So because they're consuming weekly more, you could be in a situation where they're not strictly better off, okay? So there you're adding a little bit of extra information, right? What are the extra commentaries that we added here? We kind of explained where the linearity was coming from. We maybe gave a little bit of a more definition on what was the meaning of comparative advantages, writing it as the opportunity cost, which is the slope of the PPF or the ratio of the unit labor requirements. Right? And then we talked about who's going to specialize in what. We did the maths on this, and finally we answered the benefits of trade. Okay. Let me give you a minute or two to think if you have any particular question on this. Yeah, is everybody happy? Yeah, I think I get a sense that everyone has really understood that. Now, let's do the following thought exercise. So I'll close this.